Hello everybody. In today's video we're going to be talking about James from the Thomas & Friends N-Scale Bachmann collection. So let's take a look at James here. He's paired up with his tender, and you can see he's got his typical red paint scheme. Number 5 with kind of in gold or yellow with a black outline. And there's a lot of nice black pinstriping kind of around the details of both the tender and the engine. So you can see it around the tender here, up in the scalloping, and then through the cab, and then on the fenders. So yeah, a little nice detail there. Working from back to front, you can see here the J coupler in the back with the buffers. This is a 6-wheel tender, so you got 3 wheels on each side. And then working forward, you've got the cab detail with the arched roof and a little train whistle up there. When we look at the top of this, you'll be able to see that a little bit better. And then you can see the 3 drive wheels with the connecting arms there, kind of connecting all 3 wheels together. Kind of a simplistic, connecting arm system. It's just one straight piece. And then the front wheels up here. You can see that there is a gray decking with red striping on the side of the decking. Some nice little silver piping work up here on the boiler. And you can see the front of the boiler is painted black, so you get kind of a 2-tone black-red thing going here. And then you've got some details here of some striping going across the boiler, across the top and down. And then a little bit of gold pinstriping right around the front of the cab there. Got a brass dome on the top, steam dome. And then you've got this kind of supporting iron structure out here, out in front of the boiler. So yeah, good detail on James so far. So let's give him a turn. Okay, so looking at James from the front, we have the James's face. And just a little detail here is that on the N-Scale Thomas & Friends collection, the eyes do not move back and forth when the train's in operation on the track, like you get with the HO scale Thomas & Friends. You get that eye movement, but on these N-Scales you don't. But again, looking at the front here, we've got the red bumper with the black, painted tips there on the buffers. You've got the 3 lantern posts up front, and then you can see there's that bracing work in the front of the, in front of the boiler there. Great decking, chimney, and then if you can look back at the cab, you've got these kind of 2 slit kind of windows there in the cab, so that the engineer can see where he's going. Yeah, so nice detail on these little N-Scale engines. They're really quite nice. Let's give it a turn. Okay, so this side of James is basically a mirror image of the opposite side, but in the interest of thoroughness, we just want to give you a look at that. You can see the little connecting arm here is kind of hidden up under the decking, just so you know that there is a connecting arm there on those 3 drive wheels. And again, the same details, number 5. Okay, looking at the back of the tender here, you can see again the J coupler. You can see buffers. The buffers are red, but they have the black. The buffer pads are painted black. A little bit of detail down here with the utility hook and kind of an air hose or some kind of mechanic there. There's a little scalloping on the tender, and of course the red paint job. And then we'll look at it from the top, but you can see there's a simulated coal load in the tender. Okay, so this is the front of the tender. You can see here it's just kind of painted black in the front. There's a little step up here, for somebody to go up and, either look in the coal or there's presumably a door here on the real engine to be able to shovel the coal from the tender into the boiler, into the firebox. So typical to most of these tenders and locomotive pairings, there's a little post right there, a little pin. That's the coupler for the coupling to the engine. And on the other side, the side of the tender that faces the rolling stock, that's one of those J couplers on that side. And then the engine or the locomotive has like a tongue with a hole in it for that pin to just slide down. So a very simple coupling system between the tender and the locomotive. So while we're here, Evan, again, why don't we look at the top and the bottom of the tender before we move on to the rest of James. So the top of the tender here you can see is a simulated coal load. And the coal kind of like the individual little pieces of coal kind of glisten as you turn it in the light, kind of giving you the illusion of individual pieces of coal. So it's quite a nice detail. Very effective detail anyway, a little visual effect there. So that's nice. And we'll take a look at the bottom. So on the bottom of the tender here, you got the 6 wheels. The wheels are metal. Not a ton of detail because there's really not room for a lot of detail. But just to give you a look underneath the tender there, there's just like a black flooring. That's about it. Okay, so looking at the back of James here, there's no real detail here. You can see the inside of the cab is just, just black. There's no molded details in the cab. Just straight up flat painted surface. You might be able to see the little coupler here. This is that tongue coupler with the hole in it that the pin from the tender will slide into. So yeah, that's the back. Not a whole lot to see there. Okay, so let's take a look at the top of James. So from the top here, you can see that there's a little whistle detail on the roof of the cab. The roof of the cab is, painted black, of course, with a kind of a arched shape to it. And you can see some of the pipe work, again, from the top that's along the boiler, steam dome in brass, and then the chimney in black. And then you can see, because you can look down, you can see the decking here in gray, the top of the fenders and that type of thing. So, all right, let's take a look at the bottom. Yeah, so the bottom has a few screws in there so that you can unscrew those in case you have to get into the engine and do any repairs to the motor or anything like that. You can see the 3 metal wheels with the little connecting rods there, maybe from that angle, and then you can see the front trucks there kind of pivot on a screw as it moves around the track. And then here you can see this is the little coupling mechanism here for the tender. So otherwise, you get the Bachmann, logoing there on the bottom. So, yep, so that's about it. Okay, so with the rear views of the tender and the locomotive done and the tops and the bottoms, let's continue our spin. All right, there you have it. There's James. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the rolling stock that we'll have James pull around the layout a little bit later on. We have an oil tanker, we have a water tanker, and then we have a Sodor fuel tanker for James to pull around. Now these tankers go for about $33 a piece on Amazon. And if I didn't mention it, James goes for about $112 on Amazon, just in case I didn't mention the price. So let's take one of these tankers, we'll walk around and look at the detail on it, and then we'll take a close look at the logoing and badging on each tanker. Okay, so let's take a look at one of these tankers in detail. So we'll look at the Sodor fuel tanker, since it's the brightest colored one. Will probably stand out best on the camera. But it's a single dome tanker. It has looks like a gasoline can and some flammable insignias on the side of the tank. You can see here the detail of the straps that hold the tank to the frame of the rolling stock here kind of carries down. That's kind of a nice little detail there. The frame of the car itself, or the rolling stock itself, is like black framing. It's all plastic, of course. The wheels are metal. We got the J couplers on either end, and these cars are probably about 2 inches in length each. Yeah, so you get the detail, like the mechanical details down here, similar to the open wagons. You'll see the brake mechanics down there, which is always a nice detail to see. So let's give it a turn. Okay, looking from the end, you can see here there's some protective structure here for the end of the tanker, and that carries to all the tankers that we're going to see today. We got the black buffers, J coupler. So that's the end. Let's continue around. So this side of the tanker is really a mirror image of the opposite side. There's no different markings or details or badging or anything like that. It's exactly the same. So we'll just continue around. And for the end, pretty much the same as the opposite end. We've got this kind of protective barrier, presumably to make sure that nothing damages the tanker itself. And then the J coupler and the buffers. Let's take a look at the top and the bottom. Okay, so when you're looking at the top here, you can see kind of the strapping that again holds the tanker to the car frame, and then you've got the dome at the top where we fill the tanker, and then what I presume is probably a little vent there to keep the gases from building up inside the car. I mean, if this were a real car. So, yeah, nice detail there. Let's take a look, see if you can get a good look at that side badging there, or the side insignias there, just to get a nice close-up look. Good? All right. Let's look at the bottom. Yep, so we have again, the detail here with the brake mechanisms and some of the mechanics under the car, the metal wheels, and then the Bachmann, stamping in the bottom with a part number down there. And then, of course, the couplers, and so that's the bottom. Okay, so we won't have to go into any of the details on these other tankers, as they're all identical as far as how they put together, but just wanted to show you a quick close-up. This is the oil tanker, and you can see there it's got the little oil well insignia on the side. So get a close-up of that so you can see what that looks like. And then finally, this is the water tanker. Of course, it says water along the side, and then you've got the insignias that look like water drops. Yeah, one of these things is I'm noticing here with this close-up of this car here is that there is some little bolt and rivet work along the car that you can see. So there is that detail that I didn't quite notice on the fuel car when we were looking at that. So the light just happened to be right, and I just happened to catch those bolt heads or rivet heads. So that is a nice detail. Yeah, these are good-looking cars for N scale. Like a lot of nice detail on them. All right, so there's James and the 3 tanker cars. So let's take him out on the layout and see how this looks.
Bye.